Copyright disclaimer.
Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Bill. This is Trying to Stand, where I try new things in pop culture because I've been living under a rock. So this video is going to be a little different than normal, but then again, so is this project. So I don't know, I guess I'm inspired by Halsey and their latest, addition to their discography in a sense. The film experience of If I Can't Have Love, I Want Power. It ran for a limited release in IMAX theaters, if I remember correctly, and it just was made available this last week, as of the time of this video, on not sponsored Moment House to stream for 48 hours. Not sponsored or anything. I kind of liked this experience of doing it from home. I think I paid like $8. There was a set time when it premiered, and then for 48 hours you can watch it whenever you want. So if you didn't make the premiere, you can just watch it back. If you did, you can watch it again. And there's like a live chat and everything if you want to engage in that. Full screen if you just want to watch it. I really liked it. Shout out to the people who kept me company in the Halsey chat. I just thought that was interesting, but I want to talk about the movie, both just breaking down what it was, a synopsis of sorts, and then my thoughts and theories on it. I hope you guys enjoy. I know this is a little different, but I've been really interested lately in the new world we find ourselves in as visual experiences with music and albums are starting to occur more and more frequently. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to support me. Ring the bell, check the settings, you're notified of all the uploads, set them to all, blah, 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 YouTube words. Don't forget, guys, there is a link in the description to a card that will send you to resources for social awareness and education, as well as mental health crisis lines, Trevor Project resources, things like that, should you or someone you know need them. Not only the album, but also the film experience. I'm just going to call it a movie. It's about an hour long, so it's a little longer than a short film, but a little shorter than whatever the guidelines are for like a major motion picture. I used to know those stats. Anyway, I'm gonna start calling it a movie. But there are themes of trauma as well as abuse and things like that. I will be talking about them to the best of my uneducated abilities later, so consider this a warning if that kind of content isn't something you want to ingest right now. But yeah, like I said, it's about an hour long, and it has most of the songs from the album of the same name. It was directed by Colin Tilley, and it was written by Halsey, who's also credited not only as starring and writing it, but also in the makeup department, as well as producing. I'm really bad at pinpointing the era. I think it would be Renaissance era or Victorian era. It's a period piece. It has a very almost like Game of Thronesy kind of vibe to it in the period of it all. It focuses around a queen, played by Halsey, who, upon the death of her abusive husband, the king, has been or is starting to interact with I'll say demon for all intents and purposes, but a dark spirit or entity known as a Lilith. Help me, internet. Lilith Clothlord. No, not today. Yeah, female demonic figure of Jewish folklore. Her name and personality are thought to be derived from the class of Mesopotamian demons. The name is translated as night monster. Yeah, so demon wasn't too far off. A night monster. Both roles, Lilith and the queen, played by Halsey. They seem to have struck some sort of deal, per the title, sacrificing love in exchange for power. It tells a lot of story visually with very limited dialogue, obviously leaning the most on tracks from the album that it's based off of. I really enjoyed that just in and of itself. I liked feeling like these songs, as well as the visuals, have a history to these themes, unfortunately. Again, links in the description. Still a modern issue, unfortunately, today. There's like little hints of that. It wasn't so jarring that it ever really pulled me out. Halsey's tattoos are still very visible, and it only pulled me out once, and it's because I didn't know that she had a tattoo of No Face from Spirited Away, and I went, oh shit, No Face, and then went right back into it. And I'll get into stuff like that later. I do hope that it gets a more sustainable release than a brief IMAX run and then 48 hours of being able to stream it on a site I've never heard of before. But yeah, I'm going to be talking about what happens in the movie and then giving my thoughts towards the end. So let us debrief this story. I will say that since my previous video went up a while ago, Halsey has come out with an updated pronouns list, she and they. So I'm going to be doing my best to switch back and forth while also talking about the multiple characters that they play. I will be doing my best there, but I wanted to acknowledge it up front. Bear with me as I jump around characters and also pronouns. Ew, I didn't like that the word demon was highlighted in my notes. So we open with literal bells as the king's body is found, and then we hear the bells of Santa Fe. The queen, Halsey, is transfixed on a mirror, seeing the form of Lilith in that mirror. Already we start to see that there's some sort of supernatural occurrence going on here. As the song Bells of Santa Fe continue, we start to see an investigation start into the death of the king. Already, like I said, a lot of suspicion and scrutiny at this point with no real cause other than, sexism. The royal court does consist predominantly men with one woman who I interpreted as the king's mom. We kind of jump around with time a little bit and see the queen in all black with this like bedazzled collared chain. The costuming was very stunning and I loved overthinking it to death. At first it looks like the queen is being, gloved, rings and the jewelry, but then we notice the necklace that's being put on her is actually like a bedazzled shackle, and suddenly it looks more like imprisonment or execution. We see the funeral for the king happen. We hear the priest going on about how beloved and noble the king was. The queen, meanwhile, does not agree. Super over it. That energy is being like really felt. No dialogue except for the priest saying barely 2 sentences, and we see judgment from the aforementioned woman in the royal court. Halsey, I keep saying Halsey. The queen then shows bruising on her forearm. We see flashbacks of the king is being physically abusive. We already start to see a dissonance between reality and the public image internally in the royal court, but also throughout the kingdom of who the king really was. The disregard towards the queen and her experiences. Post the funeral, we see the queen laying in bed, and at first the moment seems really positive almost, and it gives me this sense of like enjoying your space. Your abuser is gone. Getting to spread out on the bed, and then Lilith comes in. The moment almost stays sensual and positive, and then suddenly Lilith injects, I guess, their hands into the queen's stomach, about where, a baby bump would be. Foreshadowing. Suddenly the music has stopped. There's an intense horror-esque score, a lot of that shrill notes kicking in. We're left in a lot of guesswork. The whole project is very, I wouldn't say art housey, but like very avant-garde. Leaves a lot for you to take in for yourself, which I really love. As much as I am a fan of linear narrative, I love, especially when this is tackling so many themes all at once and seeing how they all connect together, noting which ones stand out to who the fastest, and then the uncertainties of everything, because there's unfortunately no immediate solution to a lot of these problems. But it seems to be either Lilith creating or claiming the baby. Either way, it works. We see the queen wake up. I had to look this up. Like, she takes a pregnancy test where she had to urinate on like barley or something, what they did before pregnancy tests and things like that. But we see her go into like this bathhouse. She's greeted by all these women. It has this safe as well as possibly sensual kind of feel to it. It almost felt ritualistic, but it felt freeing, relaxing, but then it's over very suddenly. The queen has been kind of noticing, like checking her stomach a little bit, and it's really jarring after having this like safe space here, joining her in the bath scene, lifting her up essentially. It almost looks like a aquatic trust fall kind of thing. We see everybody stoic, looking down, looking away, connecting that with the flashbacks of the demon visiting her in the night and the possibility of a child inside of you. It like really pulls out this taboo, a safe space, but then also either not knowing what to do, how to respond, what's appropriate, or being afraid to. Suddenly the queen is very isolated in that moment. It really like showed a fragility to this world as well as support. And we see this council, the royal court as I called them, look on and discuss as the queen is having like a picnic with her friends. The Girl Is a Gun is playing. It turns quickly into drinking, going through the town, hooking up, laughing, knocking things over, being a mess. We see a disturbed town around us. And first I took that as we're neglecting the crisis of the common folk, right? Commonwealth. But then I realized if the story's already spreading that the king's so great and Halsey the queen is, out partying with her friends, again, perception without understanding what's going on, and that gets touched on a bit later. Eventually riding a horse out into the woods, the horse kind of knocks her off. We start to have this very dark moment, the energy starting to kind of dwindle until she finds a hut. Insert jump scare owl. I originally wrote a witch's hut, but then I looked it up. The character's called the Seer, so I'll be referring to them as the Seer. It has a very spiritual earthy feel, I guess. I don't really know what the word would be. Occult always sounds so negative. It gives off witchy vibes, I guess I'll say that. Again, very limited dialogue. The queen like says like hello and hi, and then suddenly they're doing like Lamaze-esque like labor breathing, the ooh, which I knew about that from the Rugrats movie. Shout out to cartoons. They start doing those breathing exercises together. That's the first time we really see a confirmation of a child, right? I mean, if you knew what the album was about, you knew that that theme was probably going to come up, as well as knowing Halsey's personal life, having just had a baby themselves. Congratulations. We start to see time move aggressively forward through the 9 months of carrying a child, right? First, we see the queen inconsolably just laying in bed, depression, like people are trying to get her up. There's a ritual at one point that seems to have taken place with her handmaidens. What were they called? I'm going off of the handmaidens. Nailed it. I'm going off the terms from the IMDb casting, bringing us into The Lighthouse, one of my more favorite tracks in the album. But then eventually we see the queen start to kind of like run her fingers across and like play with the baby bump and everything. And this is, I think, for me, my takeaway, the through line of this story, the queen having no love through the abusive king, and then the lack of support and no one believing her, and then this baby becomes such a frightening, unwanted thing. But then eventually she starts to warm up to the concept of being pregnant. I think that's kind of the point, is the love that's sacrificed because there was no love from an abusive husband, right? The king. The love that's sacrificed instead is the love that she ends up finding for her child. But that child also becomes a protection, because as we hit the 9th month, we have sort of a trial between the aristocrat, the judge as I call him, the royal court, and the queen. They're calling into question her behaviors, her choices. They accuse her of gallivanting with your friends. You're not behaving properly, question the queen's character, but also the title, as well as insist in her involvement in the king's death. And rightfully so, not only does the queen respond to this in a very snide and sarcastic way, because obviously she does not mourn the king, but one can mourn in different ways. I love both addressing that, but then also you don't know what somebody's going through. People do grieve in different ways. So I really loved the validity in the message, but then also the lack of candor and the snide sarcasm as the king's reputation and legacy has been falsified. They've decided you are to be executed. You're not of royal blood. The queen rightfully reminds them the baby has royal blood, so they sentence her to death upon the birth of the child. If the baby is a boy, the baby will be spared and raised just like his father to be the next king. Yikes. Should the baby be a girl, they will kill it. Double yikes. Her fate is sealed. Once she gives birth, she will no longer be useful. Their words, not mine. The child's fate is up in the air now. They explicitly say if born a girl, killed on the spot, which does come into play a little bit later. We see her title be revoked, the execution set. The queen just rips off her jewelry, strips out of her dress. We then start to hear the sort of a reprisal of Lighthouse. It starts to outro out as the queen finds a lake and attempts to take her own life. It's unclear to me if Lilith stopped her or if the queen herself had regret, but she comes back up for air. The handmaidens are there to bring her back to the castle. The queen then escapes again, running back out into the woods. She's being pursued by soldiers of the court, the knights, I guess, because one of the handmaids has alerted the royal court that she's about to begin labor. Easier Than Lying starts to begin, and it really makes this, it really adds to the chase a lot for me. Like, it has this, because it's so up-tempo, rock heavy, it has more of a chase scene feeling to it than like a flea, if that makes any sense. Eventually finding the seer's hut again, who then acts as sort of a midwife. And the queen begins to go into labor. The labor, which is honest and real, and I trust Halsey's experience with their child birthing experience, cutting the cord, eating the placenta, things like that. But also it's interesting the way that Halsey's body kind of contorts with it. It's almost like, if anyone's seen it, The Last Exorcism, bending over backwards, contorting. It has a respect and beauty and power to the moment, but it also doesn't glamorize childbirth. It feels very real. Like the room looks and feels sweaty, but then Lilith is there. They're just standing there behind the midwife, and it starts to kind of give this ominous sense of that's mine. It's very haunting. I almost didn't see it the first time. The subtle shots where you can barely see Lilith in the background are like really frightening. Baby is born, cord cut, placenta eaten. The baby begins to cry, and then that's how they are discovered by the soldiers. The seer's hut is burned with the seer still in it. The baby is taken, but not killed, leading me to believe and understand that the baby was a male. We got our next king. Dope, dope, dope. We're going to put you in the dungeon, right? We see the baby be taken away from the queen captured. Easier Than Lying continues to play and then concludes as we see the fire start to grow, and it's this really like frightening image. After having something like a demon like Lilith, we then have this frightening image of, again, I call him the judge, the leader of the royal court holding the baby, and it's like just all this fire behind him, and it's like, nah, the cycle's gonna continue. Oh shit, we're the real monster. The horrible ways that we treat each other, the cycle that's going to continue of another king, that's the truly frightening moment. Everything else, as far, especially with Lilith, has been more like spooky, but we see the queen imprisoned, but then waking up in her cell to find it's unlocked, the guards have been killed, and the queen has a moment to choose freedom, like just running away and escaping, or staying for the baby, again, because of this connection she now has with her child. So the queen, still covered in dirt and blood and pregnancy fluids, goes to her chambers to finally hold her child, literally just says hi. Cut to what we saw previously, the queen with the bedazzled chained necklace, the all black dress. Turns out that whole setup, the chains and everything, it's her execution. We see that moment kind of continue on, only she's holding her child with her as she's like walking down to the execution site. It's going to be guillotine style. If that puts a period specific element in it, I still don't know. And we see everyone's there. The lighting is now revealed to be torches, and the soldiers are all there and everything. She's holding the baby, knowing what's about to happen, holding the child anyway. And it's like, you're welcome, by the way. I brought the new king into the world through my freaking body. And then right as we're being set into I almost said the straps. It's a guillotine. The wood clampy boys have her head locked, and we start to hear Darling start to play as we see this like alternate universe, what if scenario, bright colors, white horse, a beautiful picnic, like this alternate universe where the queen and the child get to just live and choose love over the power, is kind of how I took it. Society, if we treated people good, you know, the happiness and love that could be should these societal persecution, almost a witch hunt, you know, wasn't there. It's warm, it's bright colors, it's in the daylight, cutting back to the queen about to lose her head, right? She starts to laugh, realizing like this is going to be all of your undoing. Her head does get chopped off. It's not exceedingly graphic, but we do not cut away. So you do see, we then instantly cut from the death of the queen to, again, played by Halsey, Lilith. They're suddenly in this like vibrant red gown, like this, I don't know what the word is, but like a face crown. Suddenly everything like is absence of sound. It's a very just haunting moment as the shot starts to pan out and you just realize Lilith has returned. They're going to seek revenge. They have the power that they sought. The price has been paid. The queen's sacrifice has brought back this demonic figure, right? We see the credits start to roll as they're just slowly walking through the castle grounds. Everyone's dead or dying, but you don't see the baby, which makes me wonder if the baby was part of the payment to bring Lilith back, essentially. We feel this like almost like accomplished relish in the revenge that has happened upon these people. Like we don't see anybody else move. We don't know what's become of the baby. We just see this new Lilith, essentially, or this new form of Lilith, take in all this carnage and chaos, and the credits start to roll. It feels victorious over the situation, but everything's so empty. The sun doesn't rise, the people of the city aren't freed or anything like that. It's not even a full victory, because yes, revenge for such an injustice, but feels so senseless, you know, the persecution, everything. And it really just gives me this feeling of like, if only we had believed her, if only we didn't have this awful way that we treated, people just in general, but also the queen was trying to show and tell people what had happened. There's so many heinous acts. One can only feel overwhelmed as opposed to, it's about just this one thing. It's such a laundry list that it in and of itself becomes so overwhelming. And I appreciate that feeling. I really felt like the music did a great job of invoking the right emotion and feeling. There was just enough mysticism, I guess is the word, to investigate, or religious themes, to where it didn't feel exhausting to look up things like what the Lilith, or I guess what a Lilith is. I still got it without needing to look up the specifics. The specifics just added more. End of the day, you could remove 6 or 7 things that I Googled, and it's like, okay, abusive king, killed by the queen made a deal with a witchy demon person, the court wants to execute her for no reason, whether she killed the king or not, which we do confirm during the birthing scene, the queen did kill the king. I don't think I touched on that earlier, but seeing taking of life as well as the giving of life, I kind of liked that. You can still feel all that without doing all that research. I think the only thing, the pregnancy test, but I felt like we got that anyway because, Halsey did a great job of like inspecting her body in the mirror and touching their stomach and everything, which obviously they've experienced. And it's like, oh shit, something has changed within me. Something is not the same. I feel like that already was like clear without that kind of research. It just makes things more interesting. Because I also loved, because I'm not a big fashion person or makeup person. I don't really know that kind of stuff. I really love taking in the wardrobe and the makeup here, because something that I noticed, because I remember it freaked me out as a kid, the lead-based paling makeup. The queen's out picnicking with her friends and getting wasted and stuff. She has that lead paint makeup on, but I just kind of thought to myself, I'm like, that must be an extra way that you're bringing harm upon yourself or being negligent, because then we see later towards the end of the montage, time skips, we have like little highlights of the white on the queen's face, and it looked like then we were using less of that same poisonous paint because we've now passed the point of fingers over the baby bump and feeling more connected to the child and everything, right? Everything looked so nice. Like, I think I was only really pulled out by the tattoos because of the Spirited Away one, because I noticed it and then just kind of let it go. But then I saw the seer also had like a visible tattoo. It almost gave me this connection of like, here is someone who's going to help you, sure enough. The breathing exercises then start. I really loved that. I felt like it was shot really well. It felt like I was watching a period piece drama throughout, not only in the quality behind the camera, but in front of it as well. I liked how sometimes we faded away from a song, but we also feel the moments where the music stops, where the score kicks in, and like we start to feel like we've left the Halsey album storytelling and we've plopped ourselves back into this horror suspense period piece, blended all so nicely that I never felt jerked away from the album or jerked back to the album from a movie. And I loved, like I was illustrating earlier, feeling like songs reprised themselves when they would continue later. But I think Halsey's performance was stunning. The harshness of like the memories, I liked how it had this like flashback. Everything felt like it had like 10 more pounds of emotion to it because it's now become a hot object, a heated memory. The way it's shot too, very close into the faces. The emotions are just a little thicker, very heightened, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Those are going to be very heated, escalated memories. We're going through a flashback. As cool as it is to have those bigger moments, it's the reactionary, it's the smaller moments for me. It's feeling like the queen's already over it at the funeral before we even know most of the situation, other than I'm on Team Halsey because they're the reason I'm here to watch this thing. But removing that angle for a second, you're still trying to figure out what's up, but you already feel that the queen is over it and people are judging her. And that's solely on the performances right there. But I thought it was super fascinating as someone, especially on the subject of things like childbirth, a lot of these themes, like someone outside looking in like me, it really helped me kind of feel how it's like, yeah, it's really fucked. You will birth the child and then we'll kill you. And I'm like a farm animal, like holy shit. It gave me a lot of that perspective, again, as someone outside looking in, and I really appreciated it. I thought it was fantastic. But yeah, I'd love to know your guys' thoughts and theories if you saw the movie. I see it as the Lilith came to be from the death of the queen, and the baby was the payment for the power. I think the baby is also gone. That's just me. But I'd love to know your guys' takes and thoughts, something that I missed, things that you discovered. I know people have been talking about a lot on Twitter. I'm avoiding all that right now so I can make this video. I highly recommend it if you ever get a chance to watch it responsibly and legitimately. Support the things, don't pirate things. That's why this is a talkie video. But yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. If you want me to do a video talking about the album itself directly, let me know. You know, if people seem into it, then I'll definitely do a follow-up video doing that. Don't forget to like and subscribe, blah, 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 YouTube birds. I have a gaming channel, Bill Chill Gaming. I stream there Mondays and Thursdays. That's linked in the description. Speaking of the description, again, there is a link to a card in the description that will lead you to resources for social awareness and education, as well as mental health, crisis lines, Trevor Project resources, things like that, should you or someone you know need them. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. Be safe, drink some water, wear a mask if you choose to go out, be mindful of others, and remember to take care of yourselves, please.